Hey guys, welcome to chessroots.com. Today I will show you a very interesting game played between Kramnik and Nakamura in Corus, Wiki and Z tournament 2010. It was a Dutch defense. D4, F5, G3, Knight F6. Now the idea of Dutch defense is at one point white tries to play E4 and black tries to prevent e4. The entire game of any Dutch defense goes mainly on e4 square. As we can see now, black is controlling this e4 square. Bishop g2, g6, c4, bishop g7, knight c3. As we can see in this position, white is just controlling this e4 square. Sooner or later he will try to play a move like e4, whereas black either he have to prevent e4 or he have to play d6 and e5 to play some counter. So castle shot, knight f3, d6, castle. In this position, there are many games played between top grandmasters, like Kasparov, Karpov. Here, some players like Karpov played moves like Queen b3, c6. It was transposition in this game. Like he played c6 earlier before Queen b6, Queen b3. Now the main idea of Queen b3 is simple. When it comes like move Queen b3, then there is no threat of c5. You can simply close with d5, or you just want to close this bishop diagonal and to develop this bishop later maybe. So rook b1. Now the idea is simple. Play b4, b5. Activate this diagonal. I'll show you with the arrows this diagonal. So black should react something very fast, very interesting. Maybe in this position moves like a5 will also work, because if you play a move like b4, he can simply capture and keep a open file on a file, but white will simply play a3 and then push b4. So a5 is practically not working. So what can black do? This is very interesting and highly positional game. So you can improve your positional game and knowledge by seeing these ideas and at a very high level. So here he simply played knight e4. Very interesting. Knight e4. Now there is no b4. Simple, he will grab the knight into c3. If you capture knight into e4, then the problem is he will simply open the bishop diagonal and the rook open file, and he can also prevent with d5. This e4 pawn will not be that much weakened. So that allows black to play some counter play in the center. Just skipping all the analysis of GM. So here white simply played queen c2. Now he can simply play b4 and b5 with his own idea of activating this bishop on this long diagonal. Knight into c3. If queen into c3, the spin looks little uncomfort for white. Maybe moves like c5 will also comes into play. c5, knight c6. So he simply took b into c3, which is the only move. Now the moves of b4, b5 is not there. Black has achieved something, but the white having a good good pawn structure in the center, and this d4 pawn is very strong now. cannot be attacked so easily. The c3 pawn is supporting d4 pawn, and also white is having a rook open file, which also very good. So here he played e5, a novelty by Nakamura. Now the idea of e5 is simple, to simply play e4 maybe. f4 will be a mistake because a move like f4 will always lead black in a very uncomfortable situation. He can simply play e4 after f4, or even moves like rook e1, e4. The reason why I am saying e4 is because there will be no f5. The bishop on g7 is very passive, and white can still open with d5 or d into e5. So black should try to play moves like e4 or e into d4. So here white played rook d1, trying to get the open file and attacking the queen on d8. e4, knight g5. Here knight d2 looks very bad. Black can simply throw this pawn by playing e3 maybe, or even he can consolidate the center by playing g5, or later he can open with f4. So knight g5, interesting. Knight g5, maybe he is threatening to play d5 in the next move, and knight e6 will create a open file of d file, b file, and even after f3 this bishop on g2 is very good. These are all standard plans in this particular line. h6, not allowing anything. Knight h3 was forced to play. g5, preventing knight f4. Now there are no much options for white rather than opening the center by playing the move f3. The reason why f3 is forced because there is no other white good move. See, for example, this knight cannot go anywhere, this bishop cannot go anywhere, there are no open files. This file is there, but rook cannot do anything on b7. He cannot simply play d5 and close this by c5, activating this bishop, or he cannot even play c5. This queen hardly can't do anything. So there is no much options for white rather than opening the center. The main idea of f3 is also keeping a retreat square for this knight, so that it can attack the e4 pawn. So d5, this e4 pawn is firmly supported. Knight f2, king h8. I think king h8 is no idea. Simply the entire game was going on e4 and the development and everything, but the move king h8, can hardly understand this move. Maybe he is afraid of any check, maybe on queen b3 sometime, just removed from this pin and everything. But he can play moves like knight d7, maybe trying to develop his pieces. So here c into d5, Kramnik immediately played cd5, cd5 and c4. Here he played interesting move called e3. The only way to shut down the white's activity is to play e3, knight d3, giving the d4 pawn Now if he takes a pawn on d4, the problem is white will simply leave that pawn and play f4, a very strong move. f4 is a very good positional move. One thing is, this bishop on c8 cannot go anywhere. It is fixed to support an f5. There is no open file on the f file, and the main thing is this bishop on g2 gets a very good life, and also this pawn cannot be captured on f4. Knight will capture on f4, and also the d5 pawn is very weak. After capturing of d4 pawn, white will simply get the d5 pawn. With the help of this bishop, this pawn is like bone in your mouth. So here, and after later you can even grab this e4 pawn, e3 pawn, sorry. Knight c6 was forced to play. Bishop into e3. This bishop is not doing anything on c1. He can simply play. Now he is threatening to play f4, maybe. Knight into d4. Bishop into d4. Bishop into d4. Check. King h1. Now in this position, the thing positionally white should be better. The pieces and the activities. So now let us see in this position, if white to play, he will simply play a move f4 and on the d5, opening up this bishop. As I said in the previous thing, this rook having no open file, this bishop no open file, and the f5 pawn is struck on. So there is no much options for black. Instead of to play f4, closing the bishop on g2 and opening the life for this bishop, and also this rook on f8. To create some activity on the king side, he needs to play f4. Rook b5, very interesting. Now he is simply trying rook d5, rook d4, queen f6. Now here Nakamura just missed a move in view of he thought that after taking off rook into d5, he thought that he can simply play bishop e6, where he missed a very interesting sacrifice for white. He continued playing bishop e6, which was a mistake. Just pause this video for a few seconds, maybe a minute, and try to analyze a good move for white, which forces exchanges and can lead to a winning position. Yes, I hope you can see this position. First of all, there is a threat of rook into d4. For example, let us see rook into d4 is also can be played. Maybe rook into d4, knight into f4, knight g6 is also coming. Rook into d4, queen into d4, knight into f4, and knight into g6. But the problem is I can play a move like bishop f5 is also coming. So let us see what he played. He played knight into f4 directly. If he captures bishop into g5, for example, not knight into d5, can give knight g6 check. Knight g6 check, king g8, knight into f8, bishop c6, and knight e6. This knight will get out. So he missed totally knight into f4. So he played g into f4, was forced to play. Now rook in 5 d4, f g3, h g3. This position is clearly better for white. In view of these two pawns, two central connected pawns, rook g8, rook f4, queen g5. Now it's threatening to take queen into g3, which looks like very dangerous. But here he played a good move, rook h4. If you take queen into g6, g3, rook into h6, will be a big problem. Queen h7 is also coming. So he played rook g6 and supported this pawn. Queen c3 check, king h7, f4. Now he's supporting this pawn, trying to go an endgame with a pawn up. That will be a good advantage for white. This b7 pawn is also under attack, so there is no problems for white going to an endgame where he can win this easily. So here he played rook into g3, queen into g3, rook into g3, bishop into b7, rook b8, bishop e4 check, rook g7, king h2, rook e3, rook g1 check, king f7, bishop g6 check, king e7, bishop d3, supporting this e2, rook b2. Now he's threatening rook into d3 in view of this pin. So rook g2 supporting the bishop on d3, rook into a2, rook into h6. This endgame is pretty easy. After bishop f7, rook h7, king f6, c5. Now this pawn is going to become queen. Rook a4, c6, rook into f4, c7, rook e8, and rook f7. After king f7, you can simply play bishop g6 check, bishop into e8, and this pawn will become queen. Or else if king f7, bishop g6 check, king f8, bishop into e8, rook c4. This position is a very easy win for white. So this was a very good positional game played between Kramnik and Nakamura. I hope you understand the Dutch defense and the ideas and plannings of a Dutch defense. If black achieves e4, then without any problem, then black could have achieved something in the game. But here Kramnik just simply played very good. Even Nakamura from black, he played very good. Hope you enjoy this game. See you in the next game. Please don't forget to subscribe and leave comments. Bye.